tough economic times. It reduces the bulk of what needs to be hauled away, much of which has little, if any, recycling value. If a problem arises, figure out what to do then, but don't cut off the ability of people to take what they can use. And one last concern I had was about recycling batteries. I had saved up quite a collection because I've always read that it was a bad thing to throw it away with normal trash. But I haven't found anywhere in the county where I can take those to be recycled. So I would just make an appeal on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Creasy. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is George Parker. I live in the Mattaponi voting district. Excuse me. I'm here to speak as a follow-up to an email I sent to Chairman Thomas earlier today. I had a chance earlier to read the section of your board packet regarding the text amendments that you have on your agenda later in the meeting. I urge you to not support these text amendments. These amendments are clearly geared towards one company's desire to build a rural resort in the area of Moss Neck Manor. Moss Neck Manor is in a rural preservation area for a reason. That reason is to preserve the rural attractiveness of the area. Gentlemen, I'm not here to comment on whether or not the company in question should be allowed to build the resort. I just do not believe that that's the place for it. It's a very inappropriate location. Moss Neck Manor is an historic gem which this county should be actively trying to preserve and protect, and especially, in my opinion, protect from such corporate development. Again, I urge you to not support these text amendments. However, if you must, please do so with all edits and recommendations noted in your packets kept intact. And if I have any time left, I'd like to change subject and address also the recycle center. Chairman Thomas, we've emailed in the past. I still have no idea where to recycle compact fluorescent bulbs. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Parker. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Tiffany?
My name is Tiffany Sparks. I'm a resident of Caroline County in the Landor region, and also the general manager of Love's Travel Stop. I'm here in regards to the PRTC gas tax that is in debate. I'm a representative to my employees as well as my customers. We've just had the sales tax increase by 6% on July 1st, which eliminates dollars from my tight family budget as a single mother. And a 2% levy would mean an increase of over 7 cents per gallon on gasoline. And I personally cannot afford that, nor can my employees, my hourly employees who struggle as it is to get to work due to gas being over $3 a gallon, which we will never see that go under again at this point, even without that tax. Because our business is totally based on foot traffic generated by petroleum sales, a decrease in sales caused by changes to the competitive landscape resulting from this type of tax increase will likely mean a drop in employment available at my truck stop as well as the other truck stops at exit 104. And unemployment is already high in this area as it is. We've already been subject to a decline in our revenue due to the traffic pattern change that took place 3 years ago. So I think the numbers that you have as far as what that tax would bring to the county are false, because people will not get off that exit to get the gas if they can get it before us or after us cheaper. And I think that that exit 104 does bring major revenue to our county, with business licenses and taxes and other things and employment, of which we all employ probably 50 or more employees at each one of our stops. So I just wanted to be heard as a mother and a manager on that. Thank you.
Thank you. We hear you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of citizens' comments? Doing great. And yourself?
My name is Paul Lease. I live in Western Caroline District, Lake Landor, and I come before you to talk about the why. A few years ago, I stood before you to talk about the why, and I was somewhat in favor of it. At the time, I said I was in favor of it, but I just didn't think that it was a time to spend the money, nor could we afford it. I understand that Y has also fallen on hard times now and may want some more money or a bailout. I just can't see it. I was assured at that time that not one red cent of county money would be spent on the Y, and that they were going to take care of themselves over time and pay back the loan. I don't see it. We got so many things, so many funding issues in here. If this 7A is to give them more money, I urge you, I strongly urge you, quit throwing bad money, good money after bad, and to reject any more money being spent. You know, it's just not right. And I also support this gentleman in the reusable landfill at Landor. I think it's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of public comments? Anyone else who would like to speak as part of public comments? Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll declare public comments to be closed. Mr. Schiebel, could you give us a second, please? There were a couple of questions during the public comments. One is how and where do we recycle batteries, and how and where do we recycle the CFC bulbs?
Currently, Caroline County recycles automobile lawnmower, tractors, truck batteries. We do not recycle 9-volt C batteries, A batteries, hearing aid batteries, and so forth. DEQ does allow that to be disposed of in the landfill. It's not encouraged. It can be collected. Walmart used to collect those batteries, plus will accept those things at no cost. We have not explored looking into those. At one time we did, and we're told it was a hazard when you start putting the batteries in the small buckets, and if any of them have juice and they touch each other, they could short out and cause a fire. And we didn't really, at the time, was a cost to do that. So we haven't looked at that probably in the past 6 or 7 years. And that's something we can revisit and get an idea of what the cost is.
But we do accept those batteries.
We do not accept small batteries. We accept them through the waste stream, but do not recycle those.
Right. So Mrs. Creasy can bring her batteries to any of the convenience sites, and the convenience sites will dispose of those as DEQ says we can.
Right, which is through our normal waste stream.
Okay. The CFC bulbs that Mr. Parker has, that he's been trying to get rid of for a while.
Yeah, they are expensive to get rid of. Currently, when we buy these bulbs, we have to buy a carton to ship the ones that we currently take out back, and we've got a fee that we've got to pay to do that. So much per the box. We buy the box, we put them in there, and then we send them back. And really, the cost to us is the cost of shipping those. But every time we buy a box, I guess there's about 15, 20 that come in a box. We buy the carton that comes with them. Once we take them out, we put them back in and mail them away.
Okay. So he would bring his bulbs into...
Those are just for what we use in our facilities. We don't actually recycle those because of the expense of doing that.
Okay, but we are accepting those as part of normal waste stream?
It goes into the normal waste stream currently as it goes through, just like your household trash.
Okay, and then there's recycling done after that fact anyhow?
Mm-hmm. And those things, the new bulbs aren't as much, but the longer bulbs, they really discourage those because they are a hazard. You know, when you're talking 6, 8-foot bulbs,
right.
They can explode and shatter and send glass everywhere. So they definitely need to be handled differently. They have a lot more of the chemicals in it that you don't want to expose either.
Okay. So we'll take care of those.
We can look at that again and bring that before the board and find out what the budget would be to try to do something like that.
I think that's a good idea. Let's try that. Thank you, Mr. Schiebel.
Thank you.
Mr. Fincham, Rousey Boulevard, I thought we had we'd gotten to a point, and Mrs. Cuffey said the older supervisors as opposed to the senior supervisors, so I'll take older and senior at the same time, but I remember that. I thought there was at one point in time that we were ready to go with the project and it was funded, but there were some issues with the right-of-way.
We've had multiple issues over the years, Mr. Thomas. We've had some right-of-way that we acquired. We had some deeds. We've never had a survey done, and the survey has to accompany the deeds. Funding was an issue. Number of dwellings, occupied dwellings was an issue. It's been kind of a juggling act trying to pull everything together, and ultimately funding has probably been one of the biggest obstacles that we've had.
Okay.
If you recall, the board actually at one time set aside a small pot of money to cover survey costs, et cetera, which was not adequate, if I recall correctly, to actually cover the surveying cost that would have been incurred for the length of right-of-way. So it's been a multitude of issues over the years trying to juggle all that and get that pulled together.
Okay, and whatever funding we had for that is now gone, and with the reduction in funding from VDOT, it probably won't come back again anytime soon.
Potentially, yes, sir. Mr. Duvall has indicated that if we have a revenue sharing project, and I think we've got one over on the west side that we're looking at as well, that they certainly would look to add that back into our 6-year secondary roads program,
Okay.
provided that the funding could be identified.
Okay. Mr. Underwood, are you going to take the point on that, or you want staff to look at it, go from there? It is Reed Church District. Okay. And then bring it back to Mr. Underwood. Okay.
Yes,
Sound fair, Mr. Finch?
No
Thank you,
problem.
Mr. Fincham. I think that's it. Ms. Sparks, one thing you said, that the Carmel Church interchange generates a great deal of revenue for the county. You're right for the most part. It generates a great deal of revenue. Unfortunately, that revenue goes to Richmond, to the state, and then we get a very small percentage of that back. So it's not fair to say the least, but I understand your point. There's a lot of money generated in that intersection. Richmond gets most of it. Were you here? Well, I'll leave the health department alone. But anyhow, Richmond gets most of that money, so I'm not giving any more money to Richmond. But we did hear you, and I think that's it. Okay. That takes care of public comments and follow-up. Mr. Emerson, 3A, which is our bond regarding the school $25 million project. Do you have additional information?
Yes, sir. Excuse me. Last night, as you all know, during the combined joint school board and board of supervisors meeting to talk about several items as well as the bond issue, it became apparent that the board of supervisors really intended for $25 million net to go to the schools for use in the projects. And Mr. Cully raised the issue, well, what about paying for the cost of issuance of the bonds? Because there's traditionally that cost is deducted from the sale proceeds of the bonds, essentially. And so since the board had already adopted a resolution for the issuance of a maximum amount of $25 million for the project, there was a question as to where additional money might come from to pay for a cost of issuance. We have also gone through the process with that initial resolution, presented it to the court with a petition asking the judge to enter an order ordering the referendum, and with the question that was adopted in the resolution. And coincidentally, I received a copy of the signed order in the mail today, so that's been done. But it leaves the cost of issuance question open. And we went and spoke with Davenport, with Courtney Rogers this afternoon about it, and trying to get an estimate from him of what he thought those costs might be. And we don't believe, we really don't believe that the costs of issuance are the problem so much. But Courtney raised another issue that's purely market-driven that could cause a problem. And because we're so far away from when the bonds would go to market, it's very difficult to estimate what the impact of that cost. The actual local cost of issuance of the bonds probably won't exceed $150,000. But depending on the market, when the bonds actually go to market, which at the earliest probably would be this spring, quite possibly in connection with the VPSA, the spring VPSA offering, because traditionally that would most likely yield the best deal for the county, interest rate wise. Anyway, we don't know what the market is likely to be, and so it could very well be that the potential buyers of the bonds would offer to purchase them with what's called original issue discount, OID. It's also the flip, which would cost, well, let me go back. They can either be issued possibly with a discount, original issue discount, or the flip side of that is a premium, where depending on how interest rates move, the purchasers of the bonds might actually pay a premium over the face value of the bond. So in other words, you could actually get more money in than what the face value of the bond is. So for, say, $10,000, you might get $11,000. If you had a $10,000 par value and you paid out $10,000 at maturity, you might actually end up with more money. Original issue discount works somewhat differently than that, however. Again, it's market driven, and what you end up with there is that for a $10,000 bond that is paid, where you pay back $10,000, you might only get $8,500 up front for it. It's different from a loan where you go and you borrow $10,000 from the bank and they give you a $10,000 check and you pay interest on that every month until it's paid off. With original issue discount, the interest is built into the purchase price, either some or all of it, depending on what the potential buyer, how he prices it and bids it. So that for $10,000 that you would pay back at maturity, you might get, as I say, $8,000 or $8,500 up front. The difference between the two being the discount, and that would either be in lieu of interest or it would reduce the interest that would be paid in addition. It's being paid up front. Treasury notes are often issued that way, minimum denomination of, again, $10,000. And if the Treasury note were to earn 4% interest, you would pay $9,600 for that $10,000 note. You would get, at the end of the 6 months, you would get $10,000 back, or at the end of the 1 year, depending on what the term is. So it's the same sort of thing. But the problem it presents is, if you need a set amount of money, $25 million, and you have to provide original issue discount because that's what the market demands, and that's what the buyers of the bonds, that's the only offer you get from them, then you need to be able to issue more bonds in order to get to net your $25 million. Now, you may not pay back as much the interest. You're paying the interest up front, so to speak, as opposed to as time goes on. And Courtney says that sometimes there's actually a savings to doing that. It depends, again, depending on the way yields are calculated and all. But it's too far out from the market to know what's going to happen. And so it would be wise to add to the principal amount of the bonds that can be sold if need be. They may not need to be sold. This was done actually a while back with one of the counties, with one of Caroline's bond issues, where I think y'all approved 22 something or other in bonds, and it turned out that only 19 million were sold, or I may be wrong on the numbers, but it was some large amount less than what was actually approved, because it turned out that they weren't needed because of the way things worked out in the market. So what's the right amount? It's hard to say. It's either VPSA or VRA, both of those agencies that are essentially state entities that we sometimes go to for bonds. One or the other of them, we can't remember which one, recommends a 5% addition to the amount that you want. Courtney thinks that you can probably get by with 4%, and it may be that you don't need even that much, but 4% on the 25 added to the 25 million would make it 26 million. So the recommendation is that y'all adopt another resolution tonight, and I've got them with me if you'd like to see them, for either that amount or some other amount, but basically an increased amount, knowing that if you are unable to issue sufficient bonds and the buyers come back with an original issue discount deal, that you might not have the 25 million at the end of the day. And you cannot know the answer until you go to market, which is months away. By the same token, the market might move the other way and they could be sold at a premium. And then you don't even have to issue 25 million because you get extra dollars because of the way the interest rates work. You get extra dollars for each bond. So, maybe you issue 24 million and you come up with your 25.
But the catch for us is that we have to go to the judge to have the final number approved so it could be placed on the ballot. We won't, based on our meeting yesterday, we won't get a number from the school board until our August meeting, which cuts it extremely close.
Well, and even that number won't really help unless they say they only need 24 million or something like that, because you really, again, don't know what the market's going to do. If we wait until August, we have 2 weeks to get the resolution certified by the court and then a petition sent to the court with a new order and the judge approving it. We have no control over that timing. So we'd really like to make a decision this evening so that we have about a month. It has to be entered, the order has to be entered 60 days before the election.
And I always go lower?
You can always go lower. Yeah.
So I can say now we can agree that 26 million would cover the construction project, which I'm sure is going to be pretty close to 25 million, another million for the bonds. If we say that right now, and then in August the school board comes back and says, oh no, we can do it all for 20 million, can I then lower the referendum?
No. Well, you probably can't lower the referendum, but you can lower what you actually issue. You don't have to borrow.
I figure we can always lower, but I'm talking about the referendum.
You can do that at the last minute. I mean, right up to the day they're sold, pretty much.
The referendum is going to, basically from that, the referendum is going to be whatever number we decide tonight. So does the board want to go to 26 million? 26 is what you're saying.
That's what we recommend. I mean, 25%, the VPSA VRA guideline that they use is 5%. That would be 26 and a quarter. 1.25. Because it would be, 5 times the 250. But
and 150.
Well, we figure all of that will work into it. The 150 and basically the local issuance costs, which are Davenport's fees, bond counsel fees, other fees of things that need to be paid. If you did 26 million, there should be enough in there for that.
I think we're good.
Mr. Chairman, that we amend our bond referendum to 26.5 $1.25 million for the,
Want to go with the 5% instead of 4, 26 even?
I said 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
26
1.25.
26.25? 26,250,000.
Yeah, 250. Right, second.
Okay. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. I'll sign it before we go. Okay. That takes care of 3A we added. We did public comments. Public hearing, Mr. Fincham, we've only got one.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your public hearing tonight is TXT 08-2013, which is a proposed ordinance amendment that would permit front yard extensions for non-conforming structures in the R1 district. Planning Commission held its public hearing on this proposed amendment actually 2 times. If you recall, we originally had this under front yards, and at the board meeting we said we need to play catch up, that the non-conforming provision was the appropriate place to for this text amendment to be. This amendment would allow an existing non-conforming structure to have an unenclosed front porch within what would otherwise be your required front yard, subject to limitations. Could be no more than 10 feet away from the house, not to be any closer than 20 feet to the edge of a VDOT right-of-way. This proposed amendment would apply to any similarly situated parcel. So if you're non-conforming with respect to your front yard, any similarly situated parcel could be allowed an unenclosed front porch within that required yard area.
Oh, you're waiting for me. I was waiting for you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Fincham. Questions of Mr. Fincham at this time? Anybody have questions? Okay, Mr. Fincham, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It is not possible now for me to build a non-conforming structure, is it? Because if I went to, I want to build a house in my front yard. If I went to the Planning Commission and said, I want to build this house that's inside of the 40-foot distance, you would say, no, I can't do it. Correct?
Setbacks, limit.
Certain setbacks.
Yes, sir.
So the only way you get a non-conforming structure is the structure was there and then zoning took effect.
It is.
In its simplest form, that's probably it, right?
There are other ways a structure could be non-conforming. You could change regulations, okay?
Right.
Perhaps a boundary line was adjusted or
Moved or
something that
changed.
created, that at the end ended up with a non-conforming structure. So there are other ways, but technically or predominantly it's because there has been a change either in the zoning regulations, a zoning district, something related to our ordinance that has created the non-conforming situation.
Okay. Sounds like what you're saying is 9 times out of 10, it's not the homeowner that created the non-conforming situation, it's some regulation that created it. So,
In most cases, yes, sir.
all right. Thank you, sir. No other questions of Mr. Fincham?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
I just got a quick question. Can you give me, the Planning Commission rejected this how many times?
2 times.
They've rejected it twice. And what was their reason? I'm asking you to speak for the majority of the Planning Commission. I understand that, but what was their thought process and the rejection of this?
I think the concern was, and I need to be careful about my language here, I don't want to run afoul of the county attorney. you're in effect allowing an expansion of a non-conforming use. And I think the concerns of the commission was whether that was good zoning practice or not.
So they were feared that this was setting a precedent, is basically what we're saying? I mean, would that be a correct statement?
I think that was a concern, yes,
Okay.
that your unintended consequences, the potential for precedent of properties that may not have this issue.
Okay, thank you.
You want to add a question?
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, can we ask, the building official is here. Can we ask him a question at this point, or do we need to wait?
Let's wait a second, because the reality is we need to do the public hearing, and then we can question the building official
Okay.
again, and
That's
we'll bring Mr. Fincham back again for additional questions. So I think that's it for now, Mr. Fincham. Thank you very much, sir. We are going to open the public hearing for text amendment 08-2013. Public hearing is open. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Board members have questions. Mr. Fincham, if you'd like to come back. Mr. Black, I'll just give you my interpretation, and I wasn't at the Planning Commission, but the Planning Commission is supposed to look at all the rules and regulations and kind of enforce those. So I figured they're like the rules police in that sense, or zoning police. So anything that's not in that is different. I know this particular situation that started this is someone who has a house. That's why I asked, you can't build a non-conforming house. They have a house that, for whatever zoning changes happened, is now non-conforming. It's an older couple. They want to build a porch to sit and put rocking chairs on as they retire. I think that's kind of simple and easy to do, but because it's non-conforming, we have to go through this process. So that's where we are. And your question again, or do you want to bring Mr. Fincham back for more? Mr. Seeley, you have a question?
I just wanted to ask the building official, because he gets around, and we have a few, maybe a couple of old subdivisions that this would really affect. Do we really see this as being something that's going to have a long-term effect on those older subdivisions that have the non-conforming structures?
Use your inside voice.
My personal opinion is no. They have it set up to where there is still a certain amount of setback required, where I think there would be the clearance and the setback we need. My feelings, and I haven't been in zoning as long as Finch, but we've had these older subdivisions. They were smaller in nature, and then we dropped the zoning on them, and then the setbacks don't really fit them. But the law is law. And like Mr. Thomas said, we have the zoning police, and once you start making an exception, then where do you stop? But if you're asking me, do I see it as a huge problem? No, because we do have one or two incidences of this. And they still have the setbacks, although not the measured setback that we dropped on these little subdivisions.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my comment, I think, is that if it is caused by a change, then certainly we should use common sense. And I think this is a common sense issue more than anything else. Certainly, those homeowners who were in compliance when they built their home, because of the change now, it's non-conforming, they should have some leniency. And I think it's up to us to use common sense and give them the benefit of the doubt. We would have to look at any changes anyway if it came before to Mr. Fincham's office if they needed a permit to build. So I would think we just need to use common sense.
Mr. Akers?
I have a question for Mr. Fincham. Let's say, for instance, that because we're talking about setback from, I suppose, the boundary line or state-maintained road. If the state comes along and takes property to widen the road or what have you, does that create a non-conforming parcel if they go within that?
Yes, sir, it could. Because your addition for example, is
Could now
subject,
come
right,
closer.
setback's been revised based upon the right-of-way acquisition.
Gotcha.
Ms. Dallin, questions?
I guess my question or more of a comment. I don't want us to do something that's going to generate or create issues. But as has been said, I want us, we are supposed to work with citizens. That's what we do. And if there's a way that we can do this and help this elderly couple to be able to live their years out in comfort without creating a major problem, then that's what I want us to do. And I think we have some sharp people on our staff. I think they can figure out a way to do that. So that's my comment.
All right. Is there a motion to take care of this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we adopt text amendment TXT 08-2013, permitted front yard extensions.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Akers. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Continued discussion of PRTC. Agenda item number 5. We lost Mr. Parton at our last meeting. He was off vacationing in Maine, having a great time. So do you have any new information for us?
Mr. Chairman, as you and I discussed, I do not have any new information at this time. Mr. Fincham and his staff are working on a couple of additional informational items, one of which is having discussion with one of the local truck stop representatives to get their input on how they believe the imposition of a gas tax would affect them. The other item that he's working on is a survey of the gas prices along the East Coast corridor to get some impact or idea of how we would compare if we had an increase with the gas tax. I don't have any other additional information. Everything that we had, we provided at the last meeting.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Parton. And the one thing while you were gone, the one thing that I believe Mr. Fincham relayed to us is we do not have an option of having this 2% tax on gas and not diesel. It has to be all fuel or nothing, right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. That was a question. Any other questions of Mr. Parton?
Yeah, I do. In the process, we're going to determine, because the 2% is on the wholesale price, not on the pump price. And so I think that's going to make an impact as to what price. We heard 7 cents tonight. That's, I'm sure she was basing that on the retail price. But I don't know what the wholesale price is that the stations there pay for the fuel. So I think it's something that needs to be looked at as well.
And that's what, yeah, that's fair. Just to make sure we have more information and you know, to prove that no good deed goes unpunished. Since Mrs. Sparks came, maybe we can ask for her contact information and include her in the discussion so she can help you get some of that information. I'm sure she'd be happy to do it. Okay. All right. So we'll look for more information and more discussion. We'll, you know, continue on this a little bit longer. I hate to say I told you so, but the gas tax went away, 18 cents, and gas is the same price, if not higher.
It's
So
higher. It is. It's higher.
I said it was a bad compromise proposal, but I won't say I told you so. All right. Mr. Fincham, you're back for updates on property code. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, last year at your September 25th meeting, the board, I guess, approved a list of property maintenance issues based upon a number of fairly prominent complaints or issues that the board was aware of. Pursuant to the board's adoption of that list, staff notified the affected property owners of the property maintenance violations. Those violations, or several of the violations, were ultimately abated without staff having to actually expend any additional monies. There was one project down in the Milford area where funds were expended to clean up the property. A couple of those properties still are in the cleanup process. There's one on the western side of the county off of County Line Church Road and Blanton's Road that is in the process of being sold, and they are trying to negotiate the cleanup as part of the sale of that property. We also have one on Route 1 where the property owner has been working with us slowly to clean up the property up in the Port Royal district. It was intended to be an antique facility and never ultimately opened up. So that is also in the process of being slowly but surely being cleaned up, and we have not felt that we actually had to go to court to secure compliance based upon his willingness to work with the county. At the same time, we've also been working on we've had some other property maintenance complaints. We wanted to bring those to the attention of the board. Again, these are complaints we've received, not necessarily complaints that we have gone out and looked for. We do not do proactive. We operate on a complaint basis. And again, we've tried to break these down by district for the board to evaluate and to direct staff as to whether you want to go forward with a property maintenance effort similar to what the board approved last year. Couple of cases we don't actually have the pictures included. That was my fault. The camera did not, or my phone did not want to cooperate when it comes to sending pictures. So,
do you have rough estimates about what each one of these would cost, or any ideas?
we have not gotten estimates yet on what it would take to clean these up. If the board wants us to do that, some of these will be fairly low cost. You've got relatively small piles of trash, or so that would be a minimal cost effort. Several of these involve structures that, for example, the rear porch needs to be repaired. We have one down off of Richmond Turnpike near the Frog Level Fire Department where we have both the grass and a porch issue, a structural issue. So wherever we have a structural issue,
that's going to be a lot more.
It's going to be a lot more, and some of those are probably the more problematic ones we have.
Okay, I tried to resist, but I can't. We have a caboose on somebody's property.
I know somebody'd
Yes, sir.
like to have it.
Okay, I mean, where was the zoning police? But okay.
It was for sale.
Oh, so I can just roll a caboose up to my front yard and put for sale on it and it works?
It was an antique business at one time.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Fincham.
We can get some price estimates if...
Yeah, I think that's the way we'd like to move.
Try to save you, sir.
Thank you. I can't stop now, but it is a caboose. Anyhow, we never got any money from the last go-round, did we? Because there are all liens placed on the property.
That's correct.
So none of that property is sold, so we haven't gotten any refund back.
That is correct.
So there is an X amount of money out there that the county will eventually get at some point in time. So, okay, if we can get prices, and then we can decide whether we want to move forward.
I have one question.
Yes, you have the question, Mr. Akers.
On Route 1, down around Goldinsville, it's a site that had come before the board some months ago. You see that?
Yeah.
And I see there are a lot of trucks and things sitting outside the fenced area. You know what that's all about?
I believe that's a highway crew that VDOT has contract with to do highway work, but I will, and occasionally they occupy